Space, the final frontier.
This is the podcast State of the Federation.
Its continuing mission
To preview strange new ships.
To seek out new builds and new combinations.
to boldly go where no show has gone before.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to State of the Federation. It's good to see you all again. I'm your host, Delta Angelfire, back from his long and arduous journey to the Chicago Regionals. It's good to be back.
He's the champion, my friend.
And of course, with me as usual are our good friends, David and Tucker. How are you guys doing today?
Doing well?
I'm doing pretty well. Looking forward to some exciting metagame discussion.
Indeed, a lot happened over the weekend. There were some cool results, if not entirely unexpected, from both San Diego and Chicago. So on today's show, we will of course be discussing both of these regional events. And in addition to that, when we have some time after that, we'll also start taking a look at some of Wave 8, now that we have a full list of the cards instead of missing a couple that were not spoiled early. Sound good to you guys?
Yep.
Sounds like fun.
Excellent. So I think we should start with, go ahead and start with the San Diego one, and we'll save my wonderful war stories for just a little bit longer. Build up some anticipation, right?
Yeah, I like it.
All right. So there was a report on Board Game Geek from, was it the winner of the regionals, or was it someone else?
I think it was top 4. Let me have a look.
Someone in top 4.
One of the guys that came in, he lost in the semifinals.
Yeah, he's. I guess maybe he tied for 3rd and 4th. But yeah, he was in the semis.
Gotcha. So we have been lucky enough to get the top 4 lists, and we'll go over those real quick. What we liked about them, what we didn't like about them, and how we think the matches might have turned out. Which is cool because we do have a report on some of the strange things that happened that made it turn out not quite as expected. So our first place list from that, do we have a name? I want to say someone is a champion, but I didn't catch the name because I just got back.
He posted later in the thread. His name's Alex.
Alex? So congratulations, Alex. He won the San Diego Regional with the Cube Attack Negator build, the same one that came from Portland, and I can just throw that up real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Did he also have the Ferengi blind, or did he have something different?
He had the Ferengi blind, and I believe he built it exactly the way the Portland winner did as well.
Nice. So once again, Cube 138, Wayun, the fleet captain for crew, faked messages, transwarp conduit, Borg missile, Varel, Crosus, and Koss. Pretty darn solid list all around. You know, we already know it's a winner because it's one. Now we have 2 of them. 2 points of data. It's science. We love science, don't we?
Mm-hmm.
It's science-y, yes.
So, do we feel that this was any kind of surprise, really? What do you think, Tucker? You think, did you expect this one to make such a good second showing again?
I did. I am extremely surprised by... Tell you what, why don't we go through the top 4 list, and I'll tell you what I was extremely surprised by when it comes to this build.
Gotcha. David, any comments before we move on?
No, it's always struck me as a very strong build, and I can see people not having much time to practice and figure something else out. If anything, I'm surprised that there weren't more like this.
Gotcha. Because we don't have a, we didn't never got a full list, did we? We only got like the top 4.
That's correct. But we did. I mean, I can talk about this now if you want. The winner did post with a summary of his Swiss rounds and the opponents he faced in the top 16. And do you want me to talk about this now, or do you want me to save until after we talk about the others?
No, let's go over it now, and we'll get it out of the way. There were like what, 18 people at San Diego, or was it more?
It was 18 people. And what's really interesting about this is that the build that won went 1 and 2 in the Swiss.
Shows what can happen in the rounds.
Well, mostly what's fascinating to me about this, what's interesting is that the fleets he faced in the Swiss were much better suited to fighting this build than the ones he faced in the
elimination.
In the elimination rounds. Now the finals, he beat somebody he lost against round 1, but he and the other guy have both said that this was almost entirely due to a very lucky warp core breach. Mm-hmm. In other words, warp core breach and then instantly destroy.
Yeah, so 3 out of 33 cards in the deck plus a 1 out of 8 out of the dice. That's pretty rare.
Yeah, I don't even want to talk like that. That's going to be a little bit over a 1% chance of happening.
Mm-hmm. Maybe a little bit less even.
No, 3 out of
8.
Yeah.
Well, no, 3 out of 33 is 9%, and then 1/8 of that is 1.125%.
Yep. 1 in like 250 or so. Or 3 out of 250 or so. But yeah, I heard about that. I also heard that there was a bit of a mix-up on the pairings. It seems that after the Swiss rounds, they cut to top 8, and instead of pairing it like a normal elimination tournament with first seed and second seed on opposite sides, they ended up putting first seed and second seed in the first match.
Interesting.
Yep. So after you found out who had the strongest lists in the Swiss, then they posted the strongest list and the weakest list against each other in the elimination, which is supposed to be opposite. So I feel like that might have made a bit of a difference as well.
This is an interesting. But what I'm most interested in, honestly, is that 2 different builds. Here's what's interesting to me about the 3 rounds. Round 1 is double spheres with double tack drones and a Borg missile.
Yep.
Round 2 is a Klingon swarm, so totally different, but both builds handily destroyed this one. And round 3, here's the really interesting part, is very similar to the build Will used to win Chicago.
Ooh. I didn't see that one.
Yeah, he was running a Wayun Verocos Enterprise D with a Vo with Action Martok and Sulu. And I think that his report on this round highlights a very strong weakness of Will's build, but I don't want to talk about that because I have a gotcha question for Will based on this report.
Gotcha. But yeah, so it sounds so there definitely was some good variety at, well, I say good variety, but that's still a lot of 360 arcs and Wayuns at the list. But you know, Klingon Swarm, that's not something you see doing very well at these events. But
yeah, it was apparently a mix of cavorts and birds of prey with die bonus Martok a generic, and somebody else who Alex couldn't remember.
That's pretty cool. It's nice to see
Yeah.
that Klingons can still hold their own sometimes. I'm not sure how that worked, but maybe we'll have to give it a test later. But
it was the one that limited his range, so that may have made a big difference.
oh, it was a nebula storm or whatever.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, that could definitely be a thing. Sector conditions did, in my experience at the events, it did play a little bit of a role, but not as big as one might have hoped. So, continue on then. We'll go back to the top 4 lists. In a second place, we had the build we were talking about earlier. Double sphere, double tactical drone, and 1 copy of Borg missile. It looks like he pulled the Cardassian blind with Tashiar and dorsal array, which is the same Cardassian one I actually picked up in the same way I built it, and I believe that's the same way we built it last week when we were discussing strategy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's a pretty darn good ship. Definitely came in handy. But yeah, so this was the one we were saying. One of the ship beat first place in the Swiss, but when they met again at the top table, lost one of the spheres to a lucky warp core breach.
Mm-hmm.
Ouch.
And apparently he had the Wayne cube down to 1 hit point at that point.
But after that, if you only have one ship, eek. I wonder what happened to the Cardassian after that. It must have been Cardassian must have been out of range at that point.
Yes. After that happened, I'm reading from the report, he wasn't able to get the blind and the sphere into arc before the cube ran off. Thoughtmaker from the Ferengi forced him to not move a turn, and the cube and Cardassian were forced to kill the Ferengi before it killed the Cardassian. After the Ferengi was killed, he tried to get back into range with both ships to finish the job, but after cornering the cube, it transwarped and the game was conceded. So it looks like he blew up one of the spheres and then ran away and let the match go to time.
Mm-hmm.
This apparently was the only loss the double sphere build took all day.
The only loss at the very final match when it counted the most.
Yeah.
Poor guy.
Warp core breach. That's why you play with dice.
But yeah. Any comments on this build? We already said that it went really well in the field, so I don't know what else it fought, but two Borg spheres, that sounds like it would work pretty well. And tactical drone sounds like it would work pretty well against 4 Klingons or some of the other double sphere builds.
Well, sorry, go ahead, Dave.
I was saying what really strikes my fancy is that that's a fleet. It's a ship pure build, and with my venues being what they are, that always sends alarms going off in my head that something that's ship pure can do really well.
What's interesting to me is he faced another double sphere build, the 3rd place sphere, and beat it. So double sphere with 2 Borg missiles is the 3rd place build. That's it. This build, 2 tac drones and a Borg missile, beat 2 spheres with Borg missiles each. It's a very interesting result to me. He actually beat that build twice. He beat it in eliminations, and then he was the one that took our intrepid reporter Kevin out in the semifinals. So this looks like it might be a very strong counter to a lot of our meta.
Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of nice things you can do with it too, because as long as you have the tactical drones, if you're at the same captain skill, you can of course choose which one shoots first. If you shoot the one without the Borg missile first, you can almost guarantee that he's not going to barrel it if he has that kind of option. And then that leaves the second one where that if you know he has barrel available, you don't have to use the Borg missile because he's gonna probably be negating it anyway.
That's interesting.
And that can keep going until the point where you start spending some of the tactical drone tokens for their ability. So I think there was definitely you could definitely use some good strategy with this one. But there, I mean, really pretty darn simple, pretty straightforward, pretty dangerous. Eh?
I'd say so.
All right. Any more? Have any more for this one specifically, or shall we go on to the next similar one in number 3?
Let's go on to number 3.
Number 3, we've got another double sphere. This one's the one we were talking about just a little bit. 2 Borg missiles, but just regular drone captains. And this one pulled the Borg blind and went ahead with the proton beam, I think it was, and the dispersion field.
Pardon me.
Bless you.
Thank you.
Right, so 2 Borg missiles.
Not much to say about this. Beats the crap out of Wayne cubes.
You don't get the tactical drone rerolls, but you should be able to get target locks easily enough.
Yeah.
And whichever one actually gets the missile off, you target lock it so you can get you can try to get more than 0 hits, which actually happened to me in one of the side events on Friday.
You got 0 hits on a Borg missile?
I had 3 blanks and a battle stations.
Harsh.
Remind me that I want to talk about side events if we have any time. It's morbid curiosity.
Gotcha. But yeah, so double sphere, 2 Borg missiles. It's going at Captain Skill 1. So, I mean, there are cool things you can do with trying to block, especially large cubes with large bases, and try to deny actions that way as well. So that's another good thing about it. But by that point, you're usually in range to have used the Borg missiles twice already, or so. So Alexander in the chat is saying, I question the value of the 2 TAC drones, or what value the 2 TAC drones are adding to the build. So the 2 TAC drones with 1 Borg missile versus just straight up having 2 Borg missiles.
The ability, well, as Will was just saying, I mean, Borg missile is only 4 dice. There will be times when you whiff on that, and the ability to re-roll those dice without an action, especially in the Borg missile heavy meta we're talking about now, is clutch. God, I hate using that word, but it's clutch.
Yeah, and AWR says it allows him to essentially ignore Ox. He could do red maneuvers a lot, and it handles cloaks well too, and that's a good point. Since the Borg really only have target lock for their working, and cloak hasn't been as prominent lately, but it's still something you might end up seeing in this region build, as we were talking about earlier with the Klingon build. Those 4 red maneuvers are also good for if you're beside a planet facing away from it, you can do the 4 red to get across it if you're right up there, and that would help a little bit too. Oh, I should mention that the planets are actually the starter set planets, so they're a little bit smaller than the standard OP planets, so it's a little bit easier to maneuver, getting across them.
And maneuver around them, right? Because the Borg needed more of an advantage.
To maneuver around them. It also made it easier for fast-moving ships like Voyager to get past that point where they can actually start getting a good angle at the next guys trying to hide behind it. As I found out in one of my matches that we will discuss later. But yeah, 2 Borg missiles versus the tactical drones. This comes out to the same point, right? Borg missile is 6 and attack drones are 3 each.
Correct.
No resources? That's what I'm counting up, right?
That's no resources. No resources on the attack drones, no resources on the Borg missiles. I mean, there's nothing that can be said to object to either of these. No uniques, faction pure, no resources, and they're still beating the crap out of everyone.
Indeed. And we try not to bash on faction purity or ship purity or Anyway, however you guys want to play the game, but I feel like if anything, this shows that there are quite the powerful builds even without the need for faction min-maxing, as it were.
I agree with that. I mean, there are ways to do, and we'll talk about either this week or next week, I assume, the Valjean release and Seska. There is a way in Faction Pure to get just a ridiculous number of attack cancellations on Seska, involving utilizing the properties of resources to make things independent.
And getting lots of free undisables and things.
Yeah, basically what you end up doing is, well, no, you use Wayun. You make him independent, and then you...
We're on regionals now. We can probably talk about that when we get to the Valjean.
Yeah.
We digress. Let's finish up with San Diego and our fourth list. Unless, David, you have anything else for us on this third place build?
Don't have anything else. No.
I will say with the Borg line, I don't see Dispersion Field as being too incredibly useful. I would have rather had one. Probably even more than Proton Beam even.
Well, the problem with one on the Scout Cube is there's only 2 shields.
4 shields.
Oh, is it 4 shields, 2 hull?
Yep.
Okay.
Super tiny hull.
Then one's better. Yeah.
But that's cool. We move on to list number 4. We've got Independent Flagship on an Intrepid Voyager, I'm guessing Voyager, and a Vo and the Cardassian Blind. When I read further, it said it was like it had Reddick on it. If I was reading the thread right, or was this the one that was supposed to have Martok?
I'm not even really sure what to make of that.
But anyway, we had our Voyager, Paris, Shelby, Ilya, Kirk, Cloaked Mind, Sulu, so Super Evadager, as I think someone likes to call it at every chance. I don't remember who it was, though. Let's see. Either Ransom or Picard. I'd probably go with Picard here. You know, 11 skill is pretty nice. And something else. It's a very vague kind of report that we got, so we don't have exact lists. Reddick on the Vo, he allows one die reroll. I'm not sure why we would take Reddick instead of just Sar, because I really like Sar, and he effectively does the same thing but better. And he looks cooler. Let's be honest. Who doesn't love Sar? Do you love Sar?
Which one's Sar?
Sar's the 1-point Breen.
He lets you roll an extra evade die.
Yep.
Oh yeah, well if he's Breen, he's awesome.
Yeah, for 1 point on a Dominion ship, he's a very nice second, third, or fourth captain, somewhere in there.
But yeah, and the Vo had an additional set of Cloaked Minds. And again, Cardassian, Dorsal, and Tasha. Let's see. His goal was, AWR says, his goal was dropping mines and running Kirk actions. Oh, that's good. Because with the Vo, you don't want it attacking. It has the added defense, so it can sit there and use Kirk's action whenever it wants. So that's actually a pretty good, nice disabling tactic right there.
Yeah, the problem, as we discussed earlier, is that Admiral Kirk's just too slow against a lot of the protection of costs, Wayun, Varel, all that stuff.
Yeah, because you have to disable cost first if your opponent allows you to disable him. And if you're running something like Leonalis and or Goval, then he can just pretty much redirect it wherever he wants and get a couple extra actions. Yeah, costs. Troublesome costs. And even going to be more troublesome when Dispersion Field can be used with him. But, you know, for a build, I mean, this is kind of what, you know, kind of like my list compares to the Portland Regional, this one kind of compares to the Texas Regional. You know, you have your super evading Voyager. You cut out some of the other attacking options to get the support ship that can just help you in other ways with the extra actions economy that you can get out of it for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty fond of that, but I'm not sure my opinion counts because that's what I ran.
Yeah, I mean, well, we'll talk. I have. Well, why don't we segue? I mean, we can segue into your report because I have a question about this build that equally applies to yours.
Gotcha. All right, so we will use that to close out San Diego. Some pretty interesting things around there, and let us move on to Chicago.